I learned that betrayal does not always shout. Sometimes it sounds like a cheerful text that says, "Can you grab the kids real quick?" And your career steps aside while your love gets treated like free labor. My name is Grace Whitaker. I am 34 and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a one-bedroom near Lake of the Isles where the sidewalks remember winter longer than the trees do. I work as a project coordinator at a medical device company. My apartment smells like coffee in the morning and laundry on Sunday nights. I keep my running shoes by the door and my laptop on the kitchen table because I have been pretending there is enough of me for everyone and everything. If you are new here, this is where I tell a family story that does not need shouting to be dangerous, and the kind of revenge that never breaks a law and never raises a hand, but still leaves a mark you can live with. I do not name and shame. I show my work. I bring receipts, boundaries, and a plan. Here is the truth that makes my voice shake. Somewhere along the way, I became the unpaid nanny for my entire family. It did not happen in a single day. It arrived in minutes. Can you take Eli to the dentist? You work from home. Right. Could you grab Mia from soccer? Traffic is wild on the crosstown. Dad's follow-up got moved to late afternoon. You know the portal better than we do. Grace, you are so good with schedules. Grace, you are the organized one. Grace, we would be lost without you. Kindness dressed like a compliment until the bill arrived with my name on it. The first time I understood the size of it, I was standing outside the daycare with a tote bag on one shoulder, my laptop knocking my hip, and my phone buzzing with a calendar alert for a meeting I was already missing. The director leaned on the doorframe and told me again how grateful Megan was to have a sister like me. I smiled, because women are taught to smile when we are bleeding time. I buckled Eli into his car seat with hands that wanted to be at my keyboard and told myself it was just today. Just today turned into a season with no weekends. If you need facts, I have them. I keep my life on paper when people start telling me stories about what generosity is supposed to look like. The week before everything snapped, I counted 4 last-minute pickups in 5 weekdays, 2 rescheduled one-on-ones that I would not reschedule if my title were different, 3 quick favors that ate whole afternoons, a Saturday that began with pancakes for my niece and ended with putting Dad's pill box in order because he likes the way I label more than he likes the pill reminder app. The text that broke me looked harmless. It arrived on a Wednesday that smelled like old snow and coffee. Megan, my older sister, wrote, "Can you get the kids after school? Matt's flight is delayed and my manager moved a client call. You are a lifesaver." There was a heart and a sparkle and 3 exclamation points. What she did not know was that I had a presentation that afternoon, a project milestone that I had rehearsed in my living room with my plants as my audience. I wrote back, "I have a presentation at 3. I can do it if I move it." She replied, "Move it. You have good rapport with your boss." She added a winky face that felt like a hand on my shoulder pushing me toward the door. I moved it. I sent an apology to my manager, Ms. Ramirez, who wrote back, "Please take care of what you need to. Let me know if the reschedule affects the timeline." She is a kind woman with a spine of steel and a memory like a ledger. That sentence felt like a warning disguised as grace. I put on my coat. I ran to the car. I put the presentation in my bag like a child I could not carry and drove to the school with the Minnesota winter sitting in my bones. When I walked into the building, the lobby smelled like crayons and disinfectant and the exhaustion of teachers who have learned to keep a smile in their pocket for days like this. Eli came barreling out with his backpack open, papers fluttering, hope attached to his shoelaces. Mia walked out slower, the way 4th graders walk when they are trying on grown-up moods. "Aunt Grace," she said, and I felt my heart do that confusing flip where love and anger switch hands without telling you. On the way home, they asked if I could stay until bedtime because Mom said she is buried and Dad will be late. I texted Megan. "How late?" she wrote. "Late, late. You are the best. No time, no plan, no apology. Just the confidence of someone who believes my life rearranges itself when hers hiccups." That night, after brushing teeth and reading about a talking fox that learns to share, I stood in their kitchen washing small bowls and thought about the email I had sent to Ms. Ramirez. I imagined the faces in that conference room, the way people lean back and look at each other when the woman who is usually reliable is suddenly not there. I dried my hands and took out my phone and wrote to myself in the Notes app because my brain needed a witness. The note said, "I am not a babysitter who forgot to charge. I am a professional whose time has been treated like a family coupon." By the time I got home, it was past what my mother would call a reasonable hour. I looked at my apartment and felt the kind of tired that makes you small. My inbox had 4 new emails with subject lines that sounded like tiny alarms. I made tea. I did not drink it. I opened my laptop and my calendar, and I started counting for real. I printed the last month of my calendar and highlighted every time I had dropped work to pick up a child, drive a parent, wait for a handyman, or fix a thing that an adult with 2 free hands could have fixed. I opened my work email and printed every apology. So sorry. Family emergency. Can we move to tomorrow? I need to help my dad. Shifting this by 30 minutes. School called. I printed the text threads that arrived with no time to plan. Can you come now? Are you free right this minute? Real quick favor. It looked like confetti until you put it together. Then it looked like a net. I stacked the papers on my kitchen table and tried not to cry in that ugly way that makes your eyes punish your face. I cried anyway. Not because I do not love these people. I cried because I do. I cried because I had taught them that my love arrives faster than my calendar. I cried because every time I did it, they loved me more and respected me less. I cried because the word dependable had been braided into my name and was choking my future. When I ran out of tears, I did what saves me when I feel small. I wrote a plan. I wrote the sentences that would keep me brave when my sister's voice did the thing it does. The soft guilt, the family anthem. Family helps without questions. I wrote my own anthem in the notebook I use when I need to be the adult in the room. Help is not the same as access. Clarity is kindness. Mercy is a schedule, not a secret. Love needs receipts. Promises count when they survive inconvenience. Then I wrote the move. I was going to tell my family that I was temporarily pausing last-minute childcare. If they wanted help, they had to put it on a calendar. If they wanted me after school, it had to be booked by the previous weekend. If they needed evenings, they had to ask a week in advance. Emergencies would be handled like emergencies, not like habits. I would create a simple request form with date, time, location, and purpose. If the request did not come through the form, the answer would be no, without an apology paragraph attached. And here is the part that made my throat feel narrow when I wrote it. I was going to set a rate for childcare and use every dollar to hire a sitter or a driver when I could not show up. So the care existed without eating my career. I could hear the arguments already, like voices rehearsing in the next room. We do not charge family. Money makes it ugly. You are putting a price on love. So I wrote the sentence that would be my handrail. I am not charging for love. I am putting a price on logistics, so love has room to breathe. The next morning, I brought the plan to Ms. Ramirez first, because I needed to protect the job that pays my rent before I tried to protect the relationships that assume I will always live close enough to grab what falls. She listened the way only people who have been the reliable one can listen. She said, "You do not owe me the details, but thank you for trusting me with the plan." She also said, "Put your boundaries in writing and copy me on the next family emergency if you feel pressure to move a milestone. I can be the wall you lean on." When I left her office, I felt taller by an inch. I opened my phone in the hallway and created a shared calendar called Whitaker Care. I added time blocks for when I could reasonably help in a given week. I sent the link to Megan, to my brother Evan, to my parents Colleen and David, and to my brother-in-law Matt. Then I drafted a message in the family thread that did not apologize and did not beg for understanding. I wrote, "I love you. I want to keep being helpful in a way that does not break me. Starting this weekend, I am pressing pause on last-minute childcare. If you need me, please use the Whitaker Care calendar to request time at least 1 week in advance for evenings and by Friday for the following week's after-school pickups. Emergencies are emergencies, not defaults. I have also set a standard sitter rate that goes into a separate account labeled Family Care so we can hire help when I cannot. This is not a bill for love. This is a logistics plan so my career and my heart can both live." I attached a screenshot of the calendar and the one-page request form I had built with 3 fields and a little box for special notes. I stared at the message, and my hand shook the way it does the moment before you step into cold water. Then I pressed send. The first reply was from Evan. Proud of you. We'll plan ahead. The second was from Matt. Totally fair. The third was from Mom, who sent a long paragraph about how proud she is that I love the kids and a short sentence that said she hoped this would not make holidays complicated. I told her it would make them less complicated because I would not show up resentful. She hearted that line and sent a photo of her coffee mug like a peace offering. The message I knew would hurt arrived last. Megan wrote, "So you are punishing me because I asked for help." I put the phone down on the table. I waited for my pulse to get out of my ears. Then I picked it up and typed, "I am protecting myself from a pattern. I am still your sister. I am not your backup plan." She did not reply. That afternoon, right before my rescheduled milestone meeting, my phone lit up with an unsaved number. The school. "Ms. Whitaker, Mia does not feel well, and we cannot reach her mom. She said you usually come." I looked at the conference room through the glass and saw the faces gathering, the laptops opening. I took a breath that felt like a choice. "I cannot today," I said. "Please call her father, if he cannot get there." "I can help after my meeting," the receptionist said. "Of course," in a tone that sounded like relief and a tiny apology for every time we have trained schools to call the woman who has never said no. I went into the meeting. My voice was steady. My slides were clean. Ms. Ramirez nodded at the right places. When it ended, my phone had 3 messages, one from the school saying Mia was with her dad, one from Matt saying thank you for drawing a line because he should have been called first, and one from Megan that said, "Wow." I wrote back, "I am home by 5 if you want to talk." She wrote, "We will see." That night I sat on my couch with my blue folder, the one I was starting to call Time and Proof, and I put the papers in order. Calendar pages, emails to Ms. Ramirez, screenshots of last-minute texts, a copy of the Whitaker Care request form, a page for the family care account where I would deposit the sitter rate. I stared at the stack and let my body feel how much I had carried without proof. Then I said the sentence out loud to my empty apartment with the radiator pinging like a metronome. Clarity is kindness. Help is not the same as access. Mercy is a schedule, not a secret. If you were me, would you have pressed send on that message? Would you have told the school no for the first time so your yes could mean something next time? Would you have set a sitter rate for family and used it to pay people who do not have the option of being everyone's emergency plan? Or would you have stayed soft and quiet until the promotion you kept promising yourself slipped by while you waited in another pickup lane with your laptop cooling in the passenger seat? Sunday dinner at my parents' house smells like roast chicken and lemon cleaner. The table is a long oak rectangle that has heard every version of the Whitaker family voice. I arrived early on purpose. I wanted to put my folder on the table before the room filled with opinions. Mom, Colleen Whitaker, hugged me at the door and whispered, "You look tired." It was not a judgment. It was a record of the week. Dad, David, stirred gravy with a wooden spoon that has outlived 3 holidays and 1 broken garbage disposal. My brother Evan slipped me a grin like we were both about to see if this house could do a new thing. Megan arrived with Eli on her hip and Mia scrolling on a phone she was not supposed to have at the table. Matt followed, carrying a store cake that said family and blue frosting. He winked at me in a way that meant he was willing to be better if the room would let him. We sat. We passed salad. We tried being polite. It lasted 7 minutes. I placed the blue folder in the middle of the table. The room's temperature changed by 1 degree. Not cold. Alert. "I brought something," I said. "It is not a fight, it is paper." Mom pressed her lips together and nodded. She knows paper keeps me from crying when sentences try to make me small. Dad rested the spoon and folded his hands like a referee with a gentle whistle. I opened to the first page. A month of calendar squares with certain hours highlighted. These are the last 4 weeks of pickups. Drop-offs, doctor runs, and last-minute favors, I said. Green is planned, yellow is last minute. Yellow has taken over my life. I turned the page, printed emails. These are the messages I sent my manager when I moved meetings. She is kind. She is also counting. I turned the page again. Screenshots of texts. These are the last-minute asks. Notice the words. Now. Real quick. You are a lifesaver. No one reached for the paper. That was a mercy. Hearing it was enough. Megan leaned back and crossed her arms. Her mouth did the shape it does when she is half ready to apologize and half ready to win. We are family, she said. We help. We do, I said. I am making it real. I am pressing pause on last-minute childcare. If you need me, you use the Whitaker Care Calendar. Evenings are requested a week in advance. After school, help is requested by Friday for the next week. Emergencies are emergencies, not habits. Megan's laugh was small and sharp. So now we have to make appointments to love each other. No, I said, keeping my voice in the same room as my spine. You make appointments to use my time. My love is not an app you tap when your plan breaks. Evan cleared his throat. I already added 2 baseball rides next month, he said. The calendar worked, Grace confirmed. I sent gas money without being weird about it. He shrugged. 10 out of 10. Would schedule again. Matt tapped the cake box like a nervous drum. I should have been called first on Wednesday, he said quietly. That is on me. I told the school. You were right to say you could not. The hallway clock ticked. Mom glanced at Dad in a way that asked him to be brave. He did not make a speech. He reached for the paper and read the 1-page request form. Date, time, address, purpose, he said. Seems like what I fill out at the clinic. He looked at me. And a rate. I inhaled and said it the way I had rehearsed to my plants. I set a sitter rate for any booked childcare. Every dollar goes into a family care account. We use that account to hire a sitter or a driver when I cannot. This is not a bill for love. It is a logistics tool. I refuse to be the free solution when there are paid options we can plan for. Megan's chair scraped a fraction on the floor. You are charging me, she said. Your sister, because you like your slides more than you like your niece and nephew. I felt the old ache move up my throat. I swallowed. I did not apologize. I like seeing them. I do not like being expected without notice. I like my slides because my rent enjoys being paid. Mia looked up from her phone. What is a sitter rate? She asked to the room. Kids have a way of pulling truth out of the ceiling. It is grown up for money that respects time, I said. And then I looked at Megan because she is the person who needs to see me. Not the child who is learning how to be seen. I am not punishing you. I am protecting the job that pays the bills and the future I keep postponing. Mom reached for my hand. Honey, we never meant to make you choose. I know, I said. You did anyway. Megan's eyes flashed wet the way they do before she chooses anger as armor. So when school calls, I am just supposed to let my kids sit in the office while you do bullet points. You are supposed to have a plan that is not me by default, I said. Wednesday proved that you can. They reached Matt. He went. Your kid did not dissolve. Not. Evan cut in before the room could burn. We needed this, he said. We are not good at planning because Grace is good at rescuing. That is on us. Megan turned to him. Easy for you to say. You have 1 kid and a sane company. He lifted his hands. Fair. Which is why I actually built a list of sitters. You can have it. Mom took a slow breath. I can take Tuesdays, she said. I am not as busy as I pretend to be when I sit with my crossword. Dad chuckled. I can drive to the dentist and pretend I understand podcasts with Eli. Matt slid the cake closer to the center, as if to change the subject with sugar. We can put money in the family care account, he said. It should not be just you using your time and then your money. Megan stared at the blue frosting like it had answers. You are all acting like I am the villain, she said. No, I said softly. We are acting like I am not the hero. Silence did what silence does when the truth finally sits down. Then something shifted in the room. A small click like a lock sliding into the safe position. Mom stood and brought dessert plates. Her hands were not shaking. Let us cut the cake and then fill the calendar, she said. And after dinner, we can show Grace how to set parental controls on Mia's phone so she cannot text her aunt from the school hallway when she is bored. Mia made a face. Eli laughed like a person who had discovered a new rule to test. We ate. The frosting tasted like a truce. After dishes, I opened the shared calendar on the television and we put actual appointments into boxes. dentist drives, soccer pickups. 2 Saturday mornings where I would take the kids to the Science Museum for 3 hours so Megan and Matt could stare at a wall or each other. I did not care which. Matt zelled the sitter rate into the family care account in front of the group without making it weird. Dad wrote the account name on an index card and stuck it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a Minnesota loon. The room felt like a team huddle that had learned to call real plays. Then the step I had braced for arrived 36 hours later. Monday afternoon, my phone lit up. School, Megan unreachable, office voice, Mia needs a pickup. I stared at the screen and felt the heat climb my neck. I checked the calendar. The square for this hour was blank. I texted the Whitaker Care Channel. Request received. I am in a meeting. Family plan says Dad or Matt goes first, if both are truly unavailable. Text me the sitter you are calling and I will cover the fee from the family care account. 3 minutes later, Matt replied, "On my way." Dad sent a thumbs up and, "I will be plan B in 10 minutes. Megan texted, "Never mind," and then nothing. I put my phone face down. I reviewed the agenda for the meeting that had been moved from last week. I walked into the conference room and delivered. Ms. Ramirez stopped me afterward and said a sentence I would later write on an index card and tape next to my monitor. "You are allowed to pick yourself on purpose," she said. "People will adjust or they will leave. Your career should not have to guess." That evening, my apartment did not feel like a triage station. It felt like a place where I live. I sat at the table and wrote the phrase 3 times. You are allowed to pick yourself on purpose. Then I opened my folder and added a tab labeled Results. Under it, I wrote in clean lines: Sunday dinner, plan presented, sitter rate adopted, family care account funded, calendar filled with 14 blocks across the next month. Monday, school called. I stayed in the meeting. Matt picked up. No one died. Project stayed on track. I filmed a video for my channel with no names and a blurred calendar square as B-roll. I talked about the math of time. I said that setting a rate does not turn love into a receipt. It turns logistics into something the whole family can see. I told people that when you stop being free, you help your house become honest. Then I asked the question I promised to ask when this began. If this were your life, would you press pause on last-minute asks? Would you write a rule and sign it? Would you set a rate that supports real care instead of assuming your shoulders will hold? Or would you keep being everyone's quiet emergency plan until your own future learned to stop calling your name? December looks pretty on postcards and ruthless on calendars. The first week brought a client escalation, 2 snowfalls that forgot to stop, and a choir of invites that all arrived with the word just pinned to the top like a bow. Just a holiday concert. Just a quick cookie exchange. Just a short shift watching the kids while we run out. Just. The word that tries to make your no feel rude. At work. Ms. Ramirez pulled me into her office with a printout. The page showed a ladder. People call it a career path, but on paper it looks like a series of squares that want your time to hold still. Your name is in the next slate for Senior Project Coordinator, she said. You are not guaranteed, but you are in airspace. I need your focus through the first 2 weeks of the new year. That includes the evening with the Boston clients next Thursday. She watched my face. She knows those same weeks are when schools and families ask for the most unpaid labor. I sat up straighter like a person who finally heard her own name called over the intercom. I am in, I said. You have my focus. On the way back to my desk, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite that did not ask my opinion. Mia's holiday concert. Sent by Megan. With me listed as essential carpool. It landed right on top of the evening with the Boston clients. My stomach did that small, tired collapse I am trying to teach it not to do. I clicked open the Whitaker Care calendar and checked the squares. Megan had not submitted a request. She had invited me like I was a feature on her phone. I wrote a reply in the family thread that I read 3 times for Splinters before I pressed send. I wrote, I have a work event that night. Please use the request form if you need a ride. If there are no available slots, use the family care account to book a sitter or a rideshare for kids with a booster. I love Mia. I will cheer from the video. The dots appeared, disappeared, returned. Matt replied first. Got it. I can swing it with my coworker if I leave early. If I cannot, I will use the sitter list. A minute later, Dad chimed in. I can stand in the back and wave like a fool if needed. Eli thumbs upped that. The silence that followed belonged to Megan. She finally wrote, "It is a concert, not a contract. The kids will be crushed if you skip." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The version of me from last year would have packed her laptop, run to the concert, then returned home to apologize to Boston in the morning. The version of me who taped sentences to her fridge remembered her lungs. I typed, "I am choosing my career on purpose. I will not be in the room. Mia will be loved either way." No reply. That weekend, I did small things that helped me hold a big line. I cleaned my hallway rug because Minnesota brings the street inside in little bites. I set up a small tray for keys and gloves so I would stop losing one of each, like a cartoon. I measured rice and beans into jars and labeled them with painter's tape because order is a kindness my brain can see. Then I printed one more sheet for the blue folder, a single page labeled trade-offs. On it I wrote 2 columns, what I pick, what I do not. Under the first I wrote, promotion path, Boston meeting, 3 pre-booked rides for the kids next week. Under the second I wrote, being the emergency plan, performing guilt, saying yes before I look at my own calendar. Monday morning the city woke to snow that had not been invited but came anyway. I wore boots like a plan and a coat that made me look like a moral. "In the elevator," Megan called. I could hear the busy room in her voice before she spoke. "I cannot believe you are skipping the concert," she said without hello. "I am not skipping," I said. "I am choosing work. The kids will be covered. They will be loved." "You are their aunt." "I am their aunt," I said. "I am not their nurse, their driver, and their free logistics, not when it collides with a step I have been working toward for 2 years. She exhaled into the line. "You always make it sound like I'm asking for the moon." "You are asking for me to be the net," I said. "I am buying the net. You can use it. It is called a sitter." She switched tactics like a person fishing tries a new lure. "Mom never would have done this," she said. "She came to every single concert." "Mom stayed home and did not have the job I have," I said. "And she would tell you that if she had that job, she would have chosen it sometimes so we could pay the heating bill without playing Tetris with the due date." "You are cold," she said. It landed like a slap on a cold cheek. "I am clear," I said. She hung up. That evening I wrote down the sentences I did not say, the ones that would have made us both bleed. Sometimes language needs to get out of your body without going anywhere near another person. I put the paper in the folder under a tab labeled unsent. I slept like a person who had earned her own pillow. The next day, Ms. Ramirez sent me an agenda for the Boston meeting and a quick note. "I suggested you lead the run of show. Be ready to be surprising and calm." I smiled at my screen in the small way that keeps hope from walking around with a sign. After lunch, my phone lit up with 3 dings in a row. The school nurse first. "Mia has a fever. We cannot reach Mom." Then the school office. Then Eli's aftercare program. The old script arrived like a muscle memory that did not ask permission. I put my hand over my phone and breathed. I texted the Whitaker Care Channel. "Nurse says Mia needs a pickup. I am in a meeting block. Dad and Matt, please confirm. If not, call sitter number 2 from the list and use family care." Matt replied. "On my way," Dad wrote. "Got it if traffic hates him." A minute later, Mrs. Whitaker chimed in. "I will warm soup." Megan sent nothing. My hand shook with an anger I am learning to metabolize without eating it. I opened the folder to results and wrote, "Mia fever. Family handled within plan. Grace not summoned by default." Then I stared at the page until my shoulders softened. That night, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a small person in pajamas with damp hair and a stuffed fox. Mia stood on my rug with a look that reached into my throat. "Can I sit with you while Mom has a call?" she asked. Behind her, Matt looked embarrassed. "We tried to call Megan's mom," he said. "She is at trivia night. Mia asked for you." My heart did that familiar flip where love and a line shake hands. "Of course," I said, and stepped back. I texted the Whitaker Care Channel. "Mia here for an hour. This is an exception for fever and feelings. I will put dinner in a bowl and read 2 chapters. Please use the family care account to compensate the hour. It will go into the sitter fund." Mia curled on my couch and put her feet under my blanket like she had been practicing being small for days like this. "Did I make you miss your Boston thing?" she asked. "Not even a little," I said. "Boston is later. Tonight I smell like soup and fox." She smiled into her bowl, that loose kid smile that lands like forgiveness, even when no one needs forgiving. We read about a lighthouse and a girl who learns maps without repeating anyone's mistake. When Matt returned, he transferred the hour rate without being theatrical. "Thank you," he said. "We will stop making you the net." He paused. "I will stop. I cannot speak for Megan." "Thank you for the hour," I said. "Tell Mia I will cheer from the video." 2 days later, the holiday concert arrived like a test with the answers on the board. The day was a sheet of white outside the office windows. Inside the conference room, Boston smiled out of little boxes and asked good questions. I ran the run of show. Ms. Ramirez let me own the room. No one asked me to bring dessert. At 7 in the evening on the dot, my phone buzzed with a video from Matt. Mia in a blue dress, Eli trying not to sing. The song wobbled like children and hope. My eyes watered, and I did not apologize. In the next minute, a text from Megan appeared. "She did great. Your seat was empty." I typed, "I am proud of her." I watched the video. I did not type an apology for the empty chair. I did not thank her for the guilt. I put the phone face down and listened to a client from Boston say, "Great control of the agenda." Grace. Control is not a word I chase, but in that room it felt like respect. The same respect I am teaching my family to give my time. The weekend brought snowfall and the unavoidable errands of a city that demands you buy salt. In the grocery store, an old neighbor stopped me between cereal and oatmeal. I saw Mia on stage. She said, "Your sister told me you missed it for some big fancy work thing." I put a box in my cart and decided to model the sentence I wanted to live with. I chose my job that night. I said, "We had a plan. Mia was loved and I kept a promise to my team." That is what grown-ups do. They plan and keep promises. The neighbor nodded in a way that told me she had needed someone to say it out loud. "I wish I had done that for myself," she said. "I am learning late." "So am I," said. Late is still earlier than never. Sunday afternoon, I filmed a video about the cost of last-minute asks. I blurred every example. I showed a calendar square filled with the word planned and another square filled with the word scramble, and asked people to tell me which one made their bodies relax. I said the quiet thing I wish someone had told me at 25. You do not need a crisis to justify your no. You can pick yourself on purpose. I expected comments. I did not expect what arrived Tuesday evening in the family thread. Megan wrote, "I showed your video to the other moms in my group and they rolled their eyes. Then I sat in the car after drop-off and thought about my own calendar. I am sorry for expecting you to be my emergency plan. I am building my sitter list. I put money in the family care account. And I am asking for 2 Saturday mornings next month in advance because I want you there, not because I am drowning." I sat very still on my couch and let myself feel that sentence slide into a place that had been braced for years. Then I wrote, "Thank you. Saturday mornings approved. I want to take them to the Science Museum again." A minute later, Mom chimed in with a photo of the fridge at their house. The family care index card sat under a magnet shaped like a spoon. Under it, she had taped a handwritten note that said, "We use Grace's time on purpose." Dad added, "We bought a box of those little juice pouches the kids like. Grandparents can run point on Tuesdays." Evan wrote, "I am in charge of Thursday soccer. I made a spreadsheet because I cannot help myself." Matt added, "I am learning to call myself first." It would be tidy to say the month ended there. It did not. People still forgot to plan. Snow still made everything late. A teacher still sent an email with a subject line that sounded like a polite alarm. But now there was a rule that was not just in my mouth. It lived on our refrigerators. It lived on our phones. It lived in the way my sister wrote, in advance like a person who had finally read a map. On the last workday before vacation, Ms. Ramirez caught me in the hallway. "Boston sent a note," she said. "They want to work with us again next quarter, and they said your leadership was the reason." Then she added the sentence, "I will keep forever. You made a room feel safe while you were being brave." I went home in air that felt like it belonged to a kinder story. I opened the blue folder and added 2 lines to the results tab. Concert night. Stayed with the plan, watched the video, did not pick up guilt. Promotion slate, still in the air, acting like a person who belongs up there. Then I made a bowl of pasta and watched snow bend under streetlights. I sent Megan a photo of the view from my window. She replied with a photo of Mia asleep with a paper star in her hand and a caption that said, "She knows you cheered." If you were me, would you have let the seat stay empty and the camera hold your love? Would you have said no to a holiday concert to say yes to the run of show with your name on it? Would you have let a neighbor hear you say the line out loud in the cereal aisle? Or would you have folded your job into a small apology and run to the auditorium because the silence after the applause feels less lonely than telling your family that your time belongs to your future too? Backlash does not arrive with sirens. It slips in on a bright afternoon when you have convinced yourself the weather is on your side. I was walking back from lunch with a paper cup of chili warming my hands when my phone pinged 4 times in a row. Evan wrote, "Heads up," then a link to a cousin's post. Then another text from Aunt Janice, "Call me when you can." Then a screenshot from a coworker who follows too many people. The post belonged to cousin Brooke Whitaker, who has an artfully curated life and a smile that can hide things, a photo of a latte and a notebook. The caption read, "Some women think prioritizing self over family is empowerment. Real strength is showing up even when work is loud. Do not be selfish with your love." A smiley face that somehow looked like teeth. The comment spiraled into that syrupy chorus dressed as concern. "Yes, Queen, serve your family. Corporate life eats souls. Children remember who clapped." One person wrote, "My cousin skipped a holiday concert for a meeting. Yikes. There was no name. There did not have to be. People recognized the shape of me in the outline." The old script in my body reached for the keys that would unlock a long explanation. Then I stopped at the corner and looked at the sky, because when I look up, I remember the world is not that post. Chilly steam rose, my hands cooled. I opened the family thread and pasted the link with a single line. "This is not okay." Evan replied first, "Already on it." He texted Brooke directly, "We do not hint. Delete and repair." A minute later, Mom chimed in. "Brooke, call Grace and apologize, then post a correction." Aunt Janice called as I crossed the lobby. "I am embarrassed," she said without dramatics. "I raised a girl who thinks nice tone excuse is a cheap shot. I will talk to her." Brooke sent me a text that was not an apology yet. "You are too sensitive. It is a general post." I typed, "You posted about me? You fed strangers a version of my life. That is not general." Then I put the phone face down on my desk, closed my eyes, and let the anger knock 3 times and leave. I did not reply again. I used the system. Platform levers. I muted Brooke for a while. I turned on an extra filter for words like selfish and family duty. I set my settings so only mutuals could reply to my stories. People levers. I texted Daniel. "Please call Brooke. Tell her to delete and repair. Tell her the repair is a post that says, 'We talk to each other directly.'" He called. He kept his voice calm. I heard enough to know he refused to argue about the definition of general. He repeated the line that now lives on both our fridges. "No hint posts. We speak to the person." Personal levers. I opened my blue folder and flipped to the tab labeled Unsent. I wrote the paragraph I would not send. The one where I explained that loving my niece does not require my career to kneel. I wrote it so it would leave my body. Then I closed the folder. I ate my chili. I walked to a conference room and led a status call with a voice as even as glass. By evening, Brooke had deleted the post. 30 minutes later, a new one appeared, a bowl of oranges on a table. The caption read, "When in doubt, talk directly to your people. Social media is not a hotline. I am learning." The comments were quieter. A few hearts. Aunt Janice posted, "Proud of you for correcting, which is Aunt for this is not a debate." Still, the damage had its little travels. My coworker Megan passed my desk carrying a stack of invoices and dropped her voice. "I hate when families post like that," she said. "I used to think it was harmless until my sister made my divorce a content series." We stood there for a minute in the small solidarity of women whose private lives have been used as seasoning for someone else's story. Then we went back to work because rent and dignity both prefer deposits. The weekend arrived with a cold wind and a plan that needed a stress test. Megan had sent 2 requests in the Whitaker Care Calendar, both properly in advance. A Saturday morning movie with the kids while she and Matt cleaned the garage. A midweek dentist appointment that Dad could not cover. I confirmed both. The family care account had 3 deposits in it. Matt's transfer. Mom's small contribution. A line from Aunt Janice labeled for the sitter fund I mocked. I laughed when I saw it. The good kind. On Saturday morning, I picked up Mia and Eli with purpose, not panic. I wore shoes you can run after kids in and a scarf I had made myself one winter. I believed crafts could replace therapy. We bought a small popcorn to split and sat 3 rows from the back. During the previews, Mia leaned over and whispered, "Mom said you are doing grown-up boundaries." I choked on a kernel. "What did you say?" I asked. "I said grown-ups do grown-up things," she replied, eyes on the screen. That sentence landed like a clean blanket. After the movie, we walked to the library because I refused to let the inside of a mall be the only room in their heads. The library smelled like paper and the possibility of quiet. We stopped by the information desk to drop a card for Ms. Edwards. She spotted us and came out from behind the desk with that lemon cardigan and the smile that has become a lighthouse in this story. "How is the system?" she asked. I showed her the family care card and the calendar and the tab in my folder marked Results. She nodded the way a pilot nods at an instrument panel that is finally readable. "Now add a switch," she said. "What do you do when multiple requests conflict? Who gets to ask first? How do you say no kindly to the second ask without reopening the fight?" She scribbled a line on a sticky note and handed it to me. "First come, first confirmed. Conflicts are solved by calendar, not by guilt." We stuck it in the folder under Rules. Midweek came, and with it the dentist appointment. Snow threatened nonsense, but the car cooperated like a small miracle. I took Eli with a backpack full of numbers to scribble on because waiting rooms make him antsy. In the car, he asked why the family care card has my name on it. "Because I manage it," I said. "But it is our family's money for care, not my money." He nodded, satisfied by the difference between owner and steward in a way that made me love this planet for giving us children who can understand fairness when we choose to show it to them. By Friday, the system was humming, the calendar was full but breathable, the fund covered 2 sitter hours when I could not, and no one made me explain twice. We were not perfect. We were honest. Then Brooke tried one more time to pull me back. She sent me a direct message that began with no shade, but which is always shade. She wrote, "Your little videos make women like me look bad. Some of us want to show up for family without sending invoices." I stared at the message and felt the urge to set her straight. Then I remembered the sticky on my fridge. "Protect your peace in advance, not in the comments." I replied with a single line. "I am showing a way to make care sustainable. You are free to choose your own way. Please stop referencing me in your posts." She replied with an eye roll emoji. I set a 72-hour mute on her account and let silence do its work. That evening, I took my system public in a way that protected every name. I recorded a video called The Unpaid Nanny Trap. No faces, no identifying stories. I showed my calendar with colored squares but blurred the labels. I showed the request form. I showed the family care card with the account name hidden. Only the words family care visible. I explained how to set a rate and why the money goes to a separate account that hires help rather than into my pocket. I said the sentence that had become my anchor. I am not charging for love. I am putting a price on logistics so love has room to breathe. I ended with a practical walkthrough on how to use the calendar tools on a phone. I am not above teaching people how to find Friday. The response surprised me. Messages poured in from women I will never meet. A nurse on nights who said she had been paying in sleep for the last-minute asks and now had a template to send her family. A freelancing uncle who had played the strong helper until his blood pressure learned to speak. A 19-year-old who wrote. I showed this to my mom before she volunteered me to babysit real quick, and we made a rule. Not one person asked for names. They asked for the link to the form. Back home, the house began to flip from relying on me to running without me in little, gorgeous ways. Dad started a group text called Tuesday Roots, where he laid out who would be where and when. Mom added reminders to her phone. Matt found a teenager down the block who loves kids and charges a rate that respects her time and ours. Megan cleaned the garage for real this time and sent me a photo of a wall of labeled bins that made me cry a little because order is how some of us break cycles. The night before, the Boston clients signed the extension. A winter storm made the city look like a resignation letter. Megan called at an hour that used to be my call. "My sitter has the flu," she said. "I am staring at the calendar and the family care card. There is no slot with your name on it. I am going to ask Mom and Dad to tag team. I am telling you because the part of me that wants to beg needs to say it out loud and watch itself grow up." I sat down on my bed with the phone against my cheek. "Thank you for growing up with me," I said. "I love you, and I am relieved." The next morning I woke to a text from Mom. "We did it. Grandpa picked up. Grandma did soup. Kids watched a movie. No one cried. We used the card for the sitter part tomorrow." I exhaled and laughed at the ceiling like it had been waiting for me to apologize for nothing. At the office, Ms. Ramirez printed the email from Boston and taped it to my door for a minute like a party trick. Renewal confirmed. Notes praising Grace's steadiness. She did not make a speech. She squeezed my shoulder. "You did this," she said, "and you did not do it alone." That weekend I hosted everyone for chili and cornbread because I wanted a ritual that tasted like comfort. I set a basket by the door with little index cards. At the top of each, I had written, "What we learned this month." People wrote in their messy family handwriting. "Dad, call myself first. Mom, plan on Friday. Do not panic on Wednesday. Evan, schedule rides like meetings. Matt, use the sitter list before the guilt script. Megan, ask in advance. Say thank you with money, not just emojis. Mia, grown-ups do grown-up things. Eli, I like the teenager down the block because she knows card tricks." Brooke did not come. I did not invite her. There is a kind of peace that arrives when you stop handing microphones to people who prefer an audience to a conversation. I folded the cards into the blue folder like they were a new kind of receipt. Before everyone left, I walked to the window and pulled the curtains all the way back. Outside, a neighbor in a red hat shoveled the walkway with the rhythm of someone who knows winter is a season. Not a sentence. I turned to the room and said the line I wanted in all of our mouths. "We use each other's time on purpose." Mom pointed at the basket of index cards and smiled. "We do," she said. That night I wrote my pantry litany again, adding the sentence Ms. Ramirez had loaned me. "Love needs receipts. Clarity is kindness. Help is not the same as access. Mercy is a schedule, not a secret. Promises count when they survive inconvenience. Protect your peace in advance, not in the comments. You are allowed to pick yourself on purpose." If you were me, would you have let a cousin's post float by, or would you have used the system and asked for a repair? Would you have made a video that showed tools instead of wounds? Would you have written a rule on an index card and passed a basket like church? Or would you have gone back to being the invisible solution because it is easier to explain a tired face than a clear no? January arrived the way Minnesota arrives at everything. With resolve and a sky that looks like a clean page, the Whitaker Care Calendar had blocks of color that made sense. The Family Care account had steady deposits and tidy withdrawals with notes that read, "Tuesday sitter, Thursday carpool, Saturday museum." The chaos had not disappeared. It had changed shape. It had grown handles. The first week back at work, Ms. Ramirez asked me to stop by her office. Her desk had two piles, one full of numbers and one full of names. She used both when she talked. "The promotion slate met this morning," she said. "You're not a promise. You are a vote that carried." She smiled in the small way she does when she refuses to reduce a woman's achievement to confetti. "Senior project coordinator, effective next month." I felt the inside of my ribs fill like lungs in cold air. "Thank you," I said. And my voice did not wobble. She slid a sheet across the desk. "One more thing," she said. "Your Boston client wrote a line I'm framing for my own wall." I read it twice. She made the room feel safe while she was being brave. I folded the line and put it in the blue folder under results. I wanted it near the calendar pages that used to make me cry. The first gathering after the news was at Mom and Dad's house. Roast chicken, lemon cleaner, a long table that remembers the old ways and is learning the new ones. The air carried that quiet that comes when something shifts, and everyone is waiting to see if the table can hold it. Megan set down a salad and looked at me with a face I know from childhood. The one she wears when she is trying to be better without announcing a parade. "I heard from Mom," she said, sliding into her chair. "Senior project coordinator." She cleared her throat. "Congratulations." The words were not grudging. They were careful, like stepping on ice you want to trust. "Thank you," I said. "It took all of us. You did not call me from the pickup line this week. I meant it. It landed." She let out a tiny breath that I had not noticed she had been holding for years. While we ate, Dad told a story about a patient who spent 3 minutes describing their symptoms and 10 minutes apologizing for taking up space. "I told them the body is allowed to ask for things on purpose," he said. Mom squeezed his hand under the table. Eli asked if this meant he could ask for extra dessert on purpose. The table laughed and gave him a small yes and a large no. Halfway through the meal, Brooke walked in. She had not been invited. She came with Aunt Janice, who believes every bridge can be rebuilt if you bring food and a sentence that tells the truth. Brooke stood at the edge of the room with her latte posture, then squared her shoulders and walked to me. Her face was stripped of the online smile. She looked like a person who had practiced a line in a car. I was mean with a soft voice. She said, "I made you content. I am sorry." There was no smiley face at the end. She set an envelope on the table. "This is a contribution for the family care account. I earned it posting other people's lives. I can spend it learning how to carry my own." I did not rush to forgive. I did not perform a speech. I nodded and said, "Thank you for naming it." She sat down near Aunt Janice and took a breath like a person who had learned something the hard way. It was enough for this meal. On Monday, I filmed the final video in the series I never meant to start. I called it The Price of Free. I did not show faces. I did not use names. I laid out the system in a way a stranger could copy with a pencil and a phone. The calendar, the request form with sane deadlines, the family care account that pays a sitter so love does not have to perform gymnastics. I showed how we wrote a rule on the fridge and how we used it to make choices in rooms that used to run on guilt. Then I did the thing that felt like my small, safe revenge. I put the links to the blank forms in the description with a simple note. Use these and change them. I am not your hero. I am a person whose time learned to cost something. Do not tag your aunt. Do not tag your sister. Teach your house a rule. The comments came in honest, tired waves. A teacher who said the request form saved her from having to explain for the 7th time that her prep period is not a community favor. A cousin who once posted like Brooke saying they had deleted 50 drafts and sent 3 actual texts to people they needed to talk to. A man who admitted he had made his sister the net and was now building his own. The second week of the new year, the system got its real trial. A blizzard warning swallowed 2 days whole. Schools closed. Offices turned into screens. The old pattern twitched awake. This time. Matt put 3 requests into the calendar with time to spare. Mom took mornings. Dad took afternoons. I blocked 2 hours on Friday and put them in green. Megan sent money into the family care account without being asked, with a note that said, "For the teenager who knows card tricks." We ran the drill like people who had practiced. When I signed off at 5, Eli sent a video of a snow fort titled Fortress Whitaker. Mia filmed herself reading aloud next to a stack of books that made my chest ache with the best ache. The house did not need me in the old way. It needed me in the grown way, planned, present, not performative. The backlash that never rests tried one last time to make me small. A neighbor cornered me by the mailboxes with a tone that pretended to worry. "You have changed," she said. "You are not as available." I smiled in that careful way that is not an apology. "I learned what my time costs," I said. "I learned to pay the invoice before the resentment arrives." She blinked, then nodded like someone who had been waiting for permission to put a price tag on her own exhaustion. On a quiet Friday, I took the bus to the library with the blue folder in my tote because I wanted to close the loop where it began. Ms. Edwards met me at the desk. "How is the room?" she asked. I showed her the results tab, the promotion, the concert night I did not run to, the family care deposits that did not need my credit card to exist. She nodded and pointed to my folder. "Add one more page," she said. "Not evidence, not repairs, a creed." She handed me a clean sheet. "Write what you believe now so you can hand it to your future when she forgets." I sat at a small table in the corner by the plants and wrote in even lines. "Love needs receipts. Clarity is kindness. Help is not the same as access. Mercy is a schedule, not a secret. Promises count when they survive inconvenience. Protect your peace in advance, not in the comments. You are allowed to pick yourself on purpose. We use each other's time on purpose." I tucked the page under the first tab. Then I checked out 2 books for Mia and 1 for Eli, and a collection of essays for myself because I want my brain to feel as cared for as my calendar. On the way home, the light looked like it wanted to stay longer. The sidewalks were stubborn and bright. My apartment smelled like coffee even though it was afternoon. I took the blue folder off the table and slid it into the drawer where I keep my passports and my spare keys, because this document belongs near the things that let me move and prove who I am. In the evening, Megan called, not a text, a call with a human voice that had done some work. "I was wrong," she said. "I treated you like air. I forgot air keeps the house alive." I did not interrupt. "I am still going to ask for help," she added. "I am going to ask like a person who can hear no." "Thank you," I said. "I will say yes like a person who knows why, and no like a person who knows how." She laughed, and it sounded like the girls we used to be when we pretended the couch was a boat. "Mia wants to know if you will do Science Museum next month," she said. "Yes," I said, and wrote it on the calendar in green. It felt like choosing, not rescuing. It felt like air in my lungs, not weight on my shoulders. For the last shot of this story, I set my phone on the windowsill and turned the camera toward the glass. The curtains were already open, but I pulled them wider, outside. A neighbor scraped ice off a windshield with the steady rhythm of people who have decided to keep going. The streetlight looked like a lighthouse above the snowdrifts. I stood there and let the light come in. I thought about the unpaid nanny I had been, the person who ran when the word just arrived like a siren. I thought about the woman at a table with a blue folder, paper and plans between her and the people she loves. I thought about the day a company wrote that I made a room feel safe while I was being brave. This is where I invite you in. If this were your life, would you press pause on last-minute asks and write a rule with your name under it? Would you set a sitter rate that funds care without turning your love into a ledger? Would you tell a cousin to delete a hint and post a correction? Would you film a video that teaches tools instead of airing wounds? Would you pick yourself on purpose and let the people who love you learn to love the new version out loud? Tell me what sentence you would tape to your fridge. Borrow mine until you write your own. Love needs receipts. Clarity is kindness. Help is not the same as access. Mercy is a schedule, not a secret. Promises count when they survive. Inconvenience, protect your peace in advance. Not in the comments you are allowed to pick yourself on purpose. We use each other's time on purpose.